Late night in the Midlands. How are you?
Good evening, Michael. I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am doing just fine, and it's great to talk to you tonight. And I do thank you so much for taking time out to be with us.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure, for sure.
All right. Well, we've got an interesting topic here tonight, and I have been all over the Planet X News website. And I tell you, I find a lot of interesting stuff there. I'm going to be spending a little more time there. It's full of goodies. So I thought maybe we'd start out with a little bit of background and what I mean. Most people probably don't believe when they hear about something like this. So what got you going down this Planet X trail?
Well, I'll tell you the story. I work in the nuclear business, and I was up at a nuclear plant working, and there was a colleague of mine that mentioned the fact about this Planet X. And I've always been interested in, science and the stars and UFOs and all that sort of stuff. So I kind of tweaked my interest, but I really didn't pay a lot of attention to it in the beginning. And then one day I thought, oh, well, I'll check it out on the web and stuff. And I went around. There was lots of information on this Planet X. And when I got to Planet X News, I kind of liked that site, and I started to read the stuff. And I'll be honest with you, Michael, I was a skeptic. I did not believe that there could be this rogue planet with a bunch of others with it coming into our solar system. And I just didn't believe it. It took me, I think, it still got my curiosity, though. And I think it took me 2 years before I'd even believe it. That's how long it took me for researching this stuff, listening to people, find out who was credible, who was not. It took at least that long to find out, who was credible and who was giving out some good information that I could believe.
Right, and that's the key. Who's credible? That's been my experience. I've been doing this for 8.5 years, and I have had several guests on about Planet X. Some of them have now retired and they're not around no more. But a good majority of them, I don't have back on because I've found where they have been. They're just in it to fill their pockets, and they're taking advantage of people. And
you know what? And I agree with you 100%. When I started to write my articles, and I got started with Planet X News because I was retired, but since gone back to work because of Planet X actually, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But when Planet X News was advertising for writers, I thought maybe I could write one or two, and I contacted Brad and I said I might be able to write one or two. He said okay. He said that's fine. So it started off as a guest writer. And, when I started to write, I couldn't stop. I was probably writing 2 to 3 articles a week.
Nice.
And if you look in the archives of the stuff that I've written, you'll see that if you can find the dates on them, you'll probably see that that's quite true. But the information that I gathered was incredible. But what I wanted to do was, I'm just an ordinary fellow. And I know there's a lot of people out there like myself. They don't have a degree in science. They're not astronomers. They know very little about that stuff at all. But I think they know that they've been lied to or being lied to. And what I wanted to do was sort of, hope they don't object, but try to represent them as an ordinary citizen, so to speak, to try and gather all the information I can and put it on that website.
And I appreciate that, and that's what I want really, and that's what I set out looking for when I sent out an email. And got you here is I was looking for. First off, I wanted somebody everybody hasn't plastered all over the place already, and I don't know honestly. I mean, until I found you, I find that you've been in this and you've been doing this a while, but you and I haven't crossed paths yet. So that was important, and also important as to how serious you take it. And I'm taking it that you take it pretty serious.
Well, you know what? I'll be honest with you. It is scary. And the people that I've spoken to, and I've spoken now to quite a few people throughout the world, and it really affects their families, them and their families. I was astonished that just how much it does affect people. It affects their marriage, their relationships, all this sort of stuff. Because you have one partner that really believes and wants to prep and protect his family, and then you have maybe the wife, not all in every case, but maybe the wife that thinks the husband's going absolutely crazy.
Yeah. I know of a few people like that where they split up because they couldn't agree.
Yeah, and I mean, my wife, God bless her, She doesn't object to me doing this. She supports me in a certain way, but I think she's like most people. They don't really want to know, don't want to believe that it's true. And I think there's a lot of people out there that think the same way. This couldn't possibly happen. We've got nice blue skies and all this sort of stuff. But when I looked at all the evidence of the changes, not only on our planet, but all the other planets in our solar system, that's a matter of record with NASA. The weather on Venus and all these other planets has gone absolutely haywire. And that just doesn't happen. Something has to cause that to happen.
Yeah, and there's always excuses for this stuff. I mean, I've had some say, "Oh, well, that didn't really happen. People are making that up." But I know for a fact that these other planets have been affected temperature-wise.
Oh, yeah, they have actually violent storms on these planets now, which they never had before. And the rings of Saturn I guess some of the rings have disappeared, and all sorts of stuff is going on. And I think the increase too in meteors, even though NASA said, "Oh, we can track those." They certainly missed the one coming over Russia, and the excuse was it came out from the sun. But I mean, there's been one, I think, in Iraq that really wasn't publicized, and there's been several others too. And the increase has been absolutely dramatic.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, the same with earthquakes. I started to monitor the earthquakes and also sinkholes, as well as extreme weathers like floods. I mean, this is unprecedented, those things that are going on.
And David, if I may, you mentioned earthquakes, and I got to say, I've had Dr. Rand, who is on this, he does a show here, and Peter Kling, they do a show together. Them two have been talking about the earthquakes, and I knew that it picked up, right? But I didn't know. I finally listened to them guys, and I went ahead and I signed up at the USGS website and started getting these earthquakes sent to me, and I want everything that's 5 or more. And I'll tell you what, in the last week I've had I think 4 or 5 that were well over 6 that have come to me. I mean, that's a lot.
I know, and I watched the program when I first started to investigate this. Do you remember the program with Jesse Ventura, Conspiracy Theories?
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
I watched that, and I found that extremely interesting. And they brought up the thing about the underground bunkers that the U.S. had built. And when I realized and dug in deeper and find out more about them and discovered they built over 130 of them, mainly I think they're all actually sort of inland, away from the coast, and they're all interconnected by highway 1.5 miles down. And I'm thinking, well, why would they? If you want to have a nuclear shelter, why would you want to connect them, sort of by road? So there must be another alternative reason for the road. And I think it's a great way to disperse and transport, troops without anybody's knowledge.
That makes sense to me. And yeah, I know I've seen photos, and I'm not somebody who takes every photograph to be. For me, I've got to trust who I'm getting it from, and know that they didn't Photoshop or what have you. And I've seen pictures of what seems to be farms underneath the ground, where they've literally got farms, artificial sunlight down there that they're growing stuff with. I've seen the roads, almost like stores built down there. It's insane what they have.
Well, exactly. And I mean, that I believe, when you go back to 9/11, just before 9/11, I believe that the military was hauled up in front of Congress and asked, how come they're missing $41 trillion out of the budget? Where did that money go? And then 9/11 hit, and it all got swept under the rug. Well, I think I know where the $41 trillion went. I think it's building all those underground bunkers for the elite.
Yeah, and when we say bunkers, I mean, people are probably picturing these small little survival bunkers. I don't know. We're talking about. I mean, they've got literally cities under the ground.
Yeah, well, they had those moles that they used, which are about 60 feet in diameter, that actually bore through the earth, and they bore through the earth quite quickly. And some of them, from my understanding, I could be wrong, but some of them were actually nuclear driven.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that. Now, I've always thought this is what would be a good explanation for, people report hearing these rumbling sounds. I mean, what are these sounds? They say it sounds like trumpets playing or something. Yes. Yeah, I think that's probably what they were hearing, and these tremors that they'd get. Probably these bore machines underneath the ground.
Well, that could well be. And the fact that, on that program that Jesse did was they discovered they had acres and acres of these 3-tier coffins out in the open. And, Jesse's obviously, was asking, well, what are they for? And as soon as he had that on TV, they all disappeared. They got removed.
Yeah,
so,
that's
I
right.
mean, if you've got a good explanation for them, why would you move them so quickly? So I found that very suspicious, and I'm finding a lot of things extremely suspicious.
Yeah, I agree with you, and this is why I cover this topic, and I've covered this topic since the day I got into radio, because I remember back in 1983, in my science class, a science magazine, little paperback thing that they'd hand out once a week, and it was from NASA, and I remember opening that, and it talked about Planet X, discovering Planet X, and how they some satellite had gone out of orbit. I think it was a Russian satellite. They said kind of went off course a bit, and it caught this thing they said it just came into the solar system just enough where they were able to get pictures of it, and they made it sound like, hey, it could be Earth-like, might be trees and this. So I remember being excited about it, but I didn't know what it would turn into later. Later down the line, I start hearing about it, and it rings bells, and I say, hey, I heard about that Planet X. But now it's not, well, hey, there might be other people there. It's more, it's coming and it's going to destroy and destruct, and that it's done it before. And so, I've seen enough evidence to say it's worth not closing the door on. That's for sure.
Well, and I agree 100%. And one thing I did notice, and I did write that in the article and asked other people if they could notice too, is like I was always very interested in UFOs as a kid.
Yeah, me
and
too.
Aliens, and this is going to tell my age, but I used to watch that thing called Flash Gordon. I don't know how old you are, but
I remember it, but I'm not quite that old. But I've always been into the older stuff. I'm going to be 45 in August, so.
Oh no, you're just young. But I watched this, and I'd be glued to the TV, and the special effects when I saw it like. Oh, not so long ago, and I saw some of the clips, and some of the special effects were so funny, but sparklers for the engine, and but I always used to watch the moon, look at the moon, and I don't know about you, but when you look at the moon, it always seems to have a sort of a man's face in it.
Yeah.
And so I've studied the moon a little bit, and there is a very large crater on the moon called Tycho. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with that or not, but Tycho is one of the larger craters, which is visible with a pair of binoculars. And what surprised me was that I was looking at the moon one day, and I thought, it doesn't look right. So I got the binoculars out, and Tycho normally sits at the 5 o'clock position. That's how I remember the moon, the man in the face. It's just a little cockeyed, but it's there. And it had moved 90 degrees. And to the 8 o'clock position, I'm thinking, how can that be? Because there's no engine on the moon for it to make it move. It's not rotating. It's stationary. It's supposed to be there, solid. That's it, not move. But I've watched it move both ways, 90 degrees at times. You get a full moon and watch that. I think you might be surprised that you might be able to see that. And one of the things that really convinced me there was something going on out there. So obviously I started to dig deeper and deeper and find out more information. And again, it's from the people I think that are credible. And I've actually contacted one person. I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to, single people out. But I contacted one person who is quite well known, and I asked him a question and stuff like that. And the reply I got was not really what I expected. Let's put it that way. I'm more or less wasting his time. So, that disappointed me too, because people want to know things, and if we can't get that message out in an honest fashion. And give them the information, because I have conversations with people, and I try and blurt out in 15, 20 minutes, what I've learned.
Right.
But I've learned this: you cannot convince people in 20 minutes what took me 2 years to be convinced of. All you can do is make them aware, and then they're going to have to find out for themselves.
That's right. My kids will sometimes, they're older, they're teenagers, but they'll sometimes come to me and ask me, Dad, what do you really think about this? And I mean, do you think it's BS or is it? And, I tell them, I say, well, do I think that you need to worry about it? No. Because, do I think that it's out there? I think that there's something's real to this whole thing, because there's been enough that's come up with it, through the years with this whole. So I tell them that, yeah, I think there's something out there somewhere, but nobody has been able to show me exactly where it is and exactly how long till it gets here. And until they do that, I'm not going to sweat it. So I try not to scare them with things like this and just tell them, hey, more or less find it interesting, research it yourself. I mean, see what you find and come to your own determinations on it. But, okay, let me ask you this. Now, of the years that you've been researching this and you've looked into it, do you have an idea of maybe where it is or how long? And I know it's hard to give dates on these things, and I'm not asking you to do that, but I guess I'm asking, what have you learned about it?
Well, I've learned that, but I think it's closer than what we really believe. And I think that NASA and all the governments of the world know exactly when it's going to come, right down to the minute. They're not going to divulge that information. They want to keep us, gainfully employed and paying taxes and right up until the end. And because they don't want to create chaos or panic. Because let's face it, if we said yes, it's going to be next year in, say, June, just for example, do you imagine what it's going to be like for people? People would not go to work. There'll be people, pillaging stuff. It'd be absolute chaos on the planet.
Well, yeah. I mean, think about it.
That's why they don't say anything.
Yeah, I mean, you get something like that. I mean, if they tell you, I mean, that's just like, I guess it's kind of similar to, them telling you, hey, you got 8 months to live. I mean, okay, well, why am I going to go crazy paying for this or paying for that? And in this case, people are going to, if it was me, I mean, I'd be more quick to sell what I got and try to use that money for survival purposes. But
yeah, well, that's why I went back to work, because I was driving an ordinary car. I went back to work because I know that there's a possibility I might have to bug out, so I bought a truck. So that's why I went back to work, and started. I've got a room in my house that I call the war room, and that's where I accumulate a lot of things that I would need. And one of the things I did do was, because I believe that when the time gets closer, there won't be an internet, and you won't be able to just look something up how convenient it is right now if you go on Google and you can find out just about anything on Google. So what I did was I decided to make hard copies and buy the books of everything that I need to do, whether it's gardening, growing vegetables, or right to being out in the woods and surviving. And I recommended that with some of the articles that I put out there. I gave a list of things that really you should have, and I've been accumulating those slowly. Because, the everyday guy doesn't have thousands of dollars to go out and get all the equipment that he wants.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously they have a budget, and most people are living paycheck to paycheck. There's not a lot left over because, we pay a lot of taxes. So, I think it's important, to lead up to what you need to be. You need to set a goal of what you need and kind of work backwards from there and figure out how much per week you need. But, you did ask the question about when do I think it's coming. I have no concrete evidence to tell me that. Now, I've listened to there was a guy by the name of David Mead who's made a prediction of September, October 2017. And I'm sort of using that as my milestone, let's put it that way, that I will be, get everything that I possibly need, that I need by that time. So that's, if some people want just sort of a guideline, that's what I'm using. But please don't think that I'm saying that's going to be the actual date, because, like you say, Michael, you can't.
Well, that's right. And before we even get into things that people could do to prepare for something like this, I wonder, what can somebody do? I mean, to prepare for something like this, wouldn't you have to know? At least you'd have to be pretty close and accurate as to what's going to happen when it comes by. And so I guess that'd be a good place to go. And that is, how close will it come to Earth based on what you've researched? And I mean, what are we expecting? Because I'm thinking if something like this is happening, it's going to happen. It's going to come close enough to disturb the Earth in a way that I don't think anybody's ever seen or felt or experienced before. And I got to wonder, would you really know where a safe place was, rather than you'd have to be kind of lucky to be in a place where you could survive with something like this, because it would. I mean, I would think that all the plates and stuff would be, dancing around.
Well, they're going to be yanked, and then it'd be like I'm going to put it'd be almost like a mousetrap going off, because the plates are going to get pulled and slammed back down again, and they reckon it's going to change the shape of the continents. And I know that the tail of the wings, if you want to call it, of Planet X, are very, very long, and it's going to pass through that not only once but twice, because when this planet and its system passes through ours and goes around the sun and then back out again, we're going to go through the tail of that the first time, and then about 130 days, I believe it is, that we'll go through it the second time. And it depends on which side of Earth is facing that tail. Will take the brunt of the debris that's going to be in that tail, and it's millions of miles long. So if you ever watch that movie 2012, where you see it's raining those sort of bus-sized meteors coming down on fire, I imagine it to be something like that. And that's what they reckon knocked out the dinosaurs. And that's what happened with the Great Flood, because of the Earth got actually flipped, like turned. And I believe that the Earth travels at about 1,600 kilometers, about 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. Then when the planet comes through, it's going to slowly stop the planet. And then you've got the amount of water that it's going to move, because at the equator, the height of the water is a lot higher. I'm sure you're aware of that. It's about 500 feet higher at the equator than anywhere else on the planet. So that 500 feet of water is going to go somewhere. So you can imagine when it comes into the coastal regions, obviously, the seabed slopes up to the land. So that 500 feet is going to amount to miles high by the time it hits the coast.
And it's my understanding that even our sky, our atmosphere, holds about enough water to cover the whole entire planet with like an inch or two. I mean, that's a lot of water too.
Yeah. Well, it is. And the research I've done is like, you'll take, a lot of Europe will be underwater, Great Britain will be gone completely. I think Japan will be gone, and parts of Australia and so on and so forth. And, the west coast of the United States. So it's like, to think about that happening it's something like a science fiction movie, and it's like hard to comprehend. I mean, that's like me asking you, what's at the end of space? Well, most space, you don't know, right? You don't know what's at the end, or if there is an end. So it's hard to comprehend, and I think this is like that for people that, it's hard for them to believe that could happen, especially when they wake up on a Sunday morning, sit out on the patios and having a nice cup of coffee, sun shining, it's a beautiful day, birds are singing. You can't imagine all that, changing.
Right. But, and I think what's even more so is that most people can't imagine their government not telling them about it.
Well, yeah, that's the truth as well.
That's the part that's hard to get them, because they go, oh, come on, NASA would tell us, or our government would tell they get angry when you tell them that they're being lied to, some of them.
I know. And when I write some stories, and sometimes I get some reactions about that too, and I sometimes wonder whether they could, like, I don't know whether you heard the term, government trolls.
Oh, yeah.
But sort of paid individuals that try to discourage you from writing stuff. And I get a few of those too. And, and I tell them, I say, I must have hit a nerve, and, it just makes me more determined to write more. And which it does. I want to know the truth. Me as an individual, and I'm sure there's lots of people out there do as well. I mean, I get laughed at and ridiculed, and I'm quite used to that, and, I'm okay with that. People have their rights to their opinion, and so be it. But I mean, I took up my gun license. I got those for a particular reason.
Good.
I go target shooting, but I know that I wrote a story on what it's going to be like in the aftermath, and it's not a pretty story, but it explains a lot of things that you have to think about in the aftermath of, especially when you have no food, no water. What do you do?
And you've got millions of other people who might be walking around looking to take what you got.
Well, yeah, I know. I had somebody say to me, "Oh, it's no problem. I got a hunt. I'll just go out and shoot some deer." I said, "Then you got to consider there's going to be probably thousands of other people watching you shoot that deer and want to take it." So it's like it's not as simple or as glorious as it sounds. It's going to be one of the most ugliest things ever, and it scares me to death.
Yeah, it is. It is scary when you think about it. And if you want small examples, I say this often to my listeners. If you want small examples of what it'll be like, look at Baltimore. What happened there with just a court ruling. Look at what goes on Black Friday when people go to get their special deals at the stores. They'll stop grandma in aisle 5 to save $100 on that TV.
Well, look what happened to that poor guy at Walmart that opened the doors.
Oh, I know.
He got trampled to death.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing is, what you got to look at Hurricane Katrina. What happened then?
Well, yeah, and that's another fine example too. I mean, even the cops were going in and taking people's weapons. I mean, there was a grandmother who got beat up in her kitchen because she wouldn't give up her gun.
I know. It's so. I mean, and that gets us to another point about martial law, because there's been a lot of talk on the net about a couple of the states that they want to take the guns away from. One of them being Texas, and good luck with that one.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's. I know that Jade Helm came and went, and there was a lot of hype about Jade Helm. And yeah, I think you're familiar with the Jade Helm.
Very familiar, yes.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder, that was a big exercise. And then I looked at all the Walmarts who've got fencing around them now, and just kind of wonder what they for.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of talk about that too at the Walmarts. Now, here's what hurts these things: is you get people who want to be YouTube sensations, and they'll go to a regular Walmart and they'll film, so they'll find a military Jeep, and they'll go take a video of it, knowing darn well that the Walmart's open and that people are in it, and they make up story. They lie, they try to fearmonger to get the highest hits.
Yes, I know, and I see that, and I recognize that too. You're absolutely right, 100%. And I wrote about that too. I was really annoyed that people do that, for the sensationalism. I'm not in it for that at all. And it's funny because when I started my new job, when I got there, there's a couple of people sort of went, "I know you." And it was kind of funny in a way, because I'm not used to being sort of recognized when I don't know people, and I kind of had to chuckle to myself a little bit, and I wrote about that in an article too, and I got a real bad comment back saying, get over yourself, so to speak, but they misunderstood what I was trying to get across. It was for me, it was kind of nice that people had read my stuff, and I was getting the message out, and I felt great about that part.
Right.
And but as regards to feeling like a movie star, no. That's not my intent. All I want to do is get the message out and hope I can help people. I believe that I've helped some with their relationships, hopefully with the articles on how to get over, sort of how to lead a double life, which is very hard to do.
Right.
Because I'm living that now. I mean, I have to make plans with my wife to do this, to the other things, the regular things that you plan for in life. But then Triple D comes up and has to say, okay, now what have I got to buy to prepare for, what's coming? So then that's stressful.
It is stressful. Now, here's the biggest worry of mine. If I was going to have a worry for the aftermath of a Planet X coming through, okay, if the people are not scary enough and those kinds of things, and of course the floods and the meteor rocks and all that stuff, how about, now you work in one, so you might have thought of this, but how about the nuclear power plants? How do you survive that?
You don't. Well, that is the problem. And see, when you have spent fuel then is transported into a pool, an Olympic-sized pool, where it's kept cool. Once there's no hydro, no pumps, and the water's not circulating and they're not filling the pools, then what you're going to get is like a bunch of Fukushimas.
Yeah.
That's what you're going to get. And the radiation area will be quite large. And, you're going to have a meltdown in every one of them. And unless you can neutralize them, but nobody knows how to on this planet, then we're in big trouble. I mean, like, if you take that fiasco with Fukushima right now, the amount of plutonium and the pollution going into that water is unreal. And the damage that it's done is irreparable. Because, I think it's got a half-life of 100,000 years or 50,000 years or something. I can't remember the exact number, but it's like a long time. So the effects of that's going to be felt for a long, long time.
And now imagine over 100 of those things going down. I mean, the whole planet would be worthless. Those people who are in the ground, hiding out in the ground, they'd have to stay there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that would be there too.
That would be there too.
They live and die there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. So you kind of wonder, like, do you want to take me out real quick, or
Do you think that the whole they plan on sending some people to Mars and all that? Do you think that this is? I kind of in the back of my mind I think, oh boy, what a perfect way of getting the elite off the planet. When they know something's going to happen. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, where they're vetting these people to do a reality type show and a one-way ticket to Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I don't think they're ready to do that as yet. And I think Planet X will be here long before those plans will fall into effect. I think they're running scared, to be honest with you.
Well, they should be. They're probably more afraid of lawlessness than they are of even the planet.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, because just think. I mean, at that point, if you run into Hillary Clinton, I mean, you got nothing to lose, right?
No, just have Donald Trump go in and meet with her.
Yeah, there you go.
That would work out pretty good.
Yeah.
But I know that people. What I try to write is to stimulate people's minds on how it would be and the best way to to watch for and things to watch for. I mean, you just take regular house pets, for example. If the people are starving to death, so are the animals. And then if the animals are out, they're gonna run in packs.
Yeah.
And if you're out hunting for a little rabbit or something, you could end up being lunch.
Oh, yeah, that's very true. I mean, we've even here in the South, there's been times when there's been warnings of these dog packs, and this is civilized civilization. Wait till things break down. You're gonna have little Chihuahuas that are gonna be, hawking you down.
Instead of the pit bulls.
Yeah.
But those sort of things. I mean, I feel what's going to happen. Like, what will they do? Let's say when this comes by, there's no electricity. What are they going to do with people that are incarcerated? What are they going to do with the people that are in insane asylums? What are they going to do with these people?
That's a good question. I would imagine the people in the prisons are probably going to wind up dying there. They're probably going to be caged. Power goes out. All destruction. Unless their cage opens on them, they're probably going to be stuck in it.
Wow.
And I mean, any survivors, I don't see them going to any prisons. I don't think that's going to be at the top of their list to go in and free prisoners.
No.
So,
but you're going to see a lot of cannibalism.
I think you will too, and I think you'll see a lot of people who will be eating their own pets. I mean, you brought up pets earlier. I mean, you're going to see a lot of that. And you're going to find pets that are eating their owners too. So it's really going to get bad. I mean, and
it's people say, "Oh, let's put us back to the 1800s." No, it's going to push us way further back than that.
Oh, we'd be worse off than anybody, because our civilization now on this planet is so dependent upon technology that you take that away. If they can't go down to the Walmart to get their meat and their produce, and people are going to be done. I mean, that alone. So there's just so much going against the human race right now. If something like Planet X is to happen, I mean, the nuclear power plants, the power being on, I mean, you can forget it. You're not going to be turning lights on by a switch for a long time, if ever. Yeah, so it's going to be bad. And you look at some of the hot climates and the way the weather, I mean, we haven't even factored in how the weather would change on this planet. I mean, you might be used to palm trees and oranges where you live now. That might be a whole other ball game once something like this happens.
Well, that's correct. I noticed even the winter here we had last winter was very, very mild. We hardly had any snow at all, and which is unusual. And I've watched the weather too. The weather changing. I mean, we had snow in the Caribbean. They've had snow in Mexico. The whole. I believe the Earth's wobbling like the moon is. I think it's tilting a little bit. I know the North Pole itself is moving. It's out in the sea now, heading towards Russia at a rapid rate. So I mean, if the Earth does tilt, I mean that's going to create havoc. As regards to the plates, the oceans will get all the water get ripped out of the oceans completely.
Yeah,
it's
and you got the weight of the water is dispersed in a certain way. I mean, you start moving that, you get more weight different areas of the planet. It's going to change the way the planet sets.
Yeah.
So
but there was one warning they gave us, the USGS did, and that was the possibility or the imminent earthquake off the coast of like Seattle, on the west coast there. And they reckon if that goes, it's going to create a huge tsunami. And they reckon it's ready to go at any time. But what I was curious about was last year at Yellowstone, they closed one of the favorite trails they have through Yellowstone at high season, saying it was down for maintenance. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's kind of a weird time to do that when it's high season.
Yeah.
But I wonder what's going on out there as regards to Yellowstone, because there's a huge amount of magma there, and did that let go, it would devastate the U.S.
Well, yeah, there's that one, and there's a few others they say that would be absolutely devastating if they went off. But, Yellowstone, I remember not too long ago, the roads were melting. Now, I don't know as though if that's anything normal, but from what I understand, that's not normal. But, I mean, I don't think it would be. Why would you put roads where they're going to constantly melt? So, I mean, these roads were literally melting. They were bubbling, boiling.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you look at the amount of volcanoes that are going off now, I mean, 20, 30 years ago, if a volcano went off, it would be massive news all over.
Yeah.
Now they're going off, they're not even a mention hardly. We've got 40 of them on the Ring of Fire that are actually erupting. So why is that not hitting the mainstream news? It's almost like there's a gag order on the media. Let's just concentrate on the primaries, and let's not report the rest of the stuff. Unless there's a bit of terrorism, we'll throw that in. But we're just going to concentrate on Hillary and Donald.
I tell you, people. I've thought about this now. There is this scenario that goes off in my head. Is I was just telling the kids tonight too. This is probably going to be the greatest presidential election run that they've ever witnessed in their lifetime. And I'm thinking, I was like, there's a part of me that wonders sometimes, why not throw these two? Oh boy, what attention they've taken, and maybe there's something bigger happening that people are missing, including myself. And I've thought about that. However, I'm a Donald Trump supporter. I'll say that, but I don't hide from the fact that this could be all a diversion.
Well, I mean, when I watch CNN, I think to myself, how they could possibly talk about that same person for months, every day, and have a panel on there, and all the experts on there. Well, they've all the. If you go back and listen to what they'd said months and months ago that Donald wouldn't even be in the running, they've all been proven wrong to so-called experts. So
yeah.
But you're right. I think this is like the smoke and mirrors just to keep people's attention away from what's really, really going on, and I believe that. I believe there is something a lot bigger, like Planet X, and the effects of that, and it's coming. And I mean, a lot of people have written that Obama's the last president.
Well, and I think about it too, and folks, it's not that I'm giving up here or anything, but I'm simply saying that with you look through the process through the years, you've had Kennedy, he got in there, he was doing all right, and they shot him. And it seems like Reagan, he tried to do well and did pretty well, but they shot him even too. And so it seems like it's been amazing to me how. Ron Paul too. I mean, he was the only other candidate I ever really went goo over, and and he didn't make it. They didn't let him in, and I'm thinking, why Donald? Why is he so successful when he's so much different than the rest of them? And so I have thought about that, but I look at it. He has pulled off a brilliant campaign. He has, but that being said, you never know. They could say, hey, this is perfect. Let him go. People will focus on that, and meanwhile, we'll sneak off and head to Mars or the moon or wherever. I mean, that's always a possibility, I guess.
I think. Well, yeah, I really think it's like what we're watching is like a reality show, and I think basically what it is, they go out there and say, Donald, just go wild, say whatever you want, because it gets everybody's attention, right? So it's always a sort of you're by the coffee machine, it's gossip around there. So everybody's focusing on that and not really realizing. I mean, let's face it, the Illuminati's done a great job in snowing as to guys what's really going on.
Well, yeah, they have, and at this point, we've seen that this, I call them the New World Order. I guess people have different ways of describing them, but it's like the Bilderberg thing. I mean, here it is in the news every year. The Bilderbergs. Who the hell cares about the Bilderbergs and where they're going to meet? Because I think if it was really something they didn't want us to pay attention to, they'd make sure we didn't know about it. So I don't know. It seems like sometimes I wonder if that's a diversion too. It's like you think those are the people making this decision and that decision when really they're underneath the ground right now in their offices. They're probably making these decisions,
Well, sure. You know, it's like what I wrote in one article there again on Planet X News was about, you know, that they'll be sitting in their underground bunkers in nice lazy boy chairs with the beer and the popcorn, watching all the video cameras they've managed to get installed throughout the major cities of the world,
Oh,
and
no
watching
kidding.
watching the reality show for real. You know, see what's going on.
No kidding. You know, that's a good point. The cameras, there's over, I think, what did I read? Was it 225 million, I thought it was,
There's
cameras
a lot.
around the
Yeah,
world?
yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah,
So I mean, they'll be watching us out there.
that's a lot
You
of
know,
channels.
yeah, slaughtering each other because they want to be able to reduce the population down to 500 million people. So I hear.
Yeah,
Now,
and why not
I,
record history that way, right?
yeah, I mean, people got to remember too that all the information, that I'm talking about anyway, and probably yourself is like everything that we learn from others, and it can only be as valid as the source. I know that some people have put some deeds and stuff on the web, but they're only going by the insider information that they receive.
Right.
So if they happen to be wrong, it's not necessarily their fault.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So if someone makes a prediction and it doesn't come true, then because they've had that information given to them, then you can't really blame that person either because they're doing it in good faith.
Right. And and I hear people all the time. I listen to some of these big shows, and you got people, well, my special inside sources tell me this and that. And I don't know. A lot of these people are before it's news researchers, and they're just out there to like I say, to fill their pockets. And so I try to weed through those people because I have a big interest in these things, but I'm not gullible. For me, I've always want proof. Sometimes people get mad at me because they say, well, what are you doing to prepare for Planet X? And I say, well, if God wants me to do something, then, I'll get my sign. I mean, I'll just know when it's time to go. I'm about 2 hours from the coast right now. I'm in South Carolina, and we had the historic floods here not long ago.
Yes.
And I'd never seen anything like that in my life. I'm originally from New York, moved here in '08, and that's the first time I've seen something like that. Seeing entire roads caving in from water, just seeing entire neighborhoods underwater. It was just incredible.
I know it's amazing. In fact, you know what? Like we've just had in Ottawa, which is our capital there, we've just had the sinkhole appear.
Oh.
So if you Google that, Ottawa sinkhole, you'll see that we've had one, and it's like, where did that come from? And a lot of people say, oh, it's all due to fracking, and it's all due to this, that, and the other. No, it's got to do with the Earth's changing, and I believe it's going to cleanse itself, one way or the other.
And that's something I wonder. And we got a break coming up, so I'll probably hold it for after the break, maybe discussion on this. But where I want to go after this break is how do we know how can we be sure what is maybe the results of a big body of something out in space that's affecting us, and based on or versus the technology that the military industrial complex has and uses, such as weather modifications and things. So maybe we can hit that a little bit on that when we come back. And so hang on with me for a moment. We'll go ahead and talk, and let's see how it sounds.
There's been a lot of interference on the internet lately, and regarding all the scenarios that are coming into play. And then when I published the book last Friday, and people are coming to me like wildfire. In fact, one of them is somebody that introduced me to my introduction to get into the disclosure part, and tell my story. Well, I came across a guy who has been following Planet X since Sitchin invented it. He was inside DARPA. I can't disclose the name yet. And he told me some very interesting things over the weekend when the rapid sales and interest in my book came about. And he told me straight up that until some other person died, he couldn't say anything. Well, he did. And he's the only person that knows what he knows, and he's got some proof to do it. He flat out told me the Nibiru system is 700 or so years from getting any problems with the planet Earth tilt theories.
But now you said since Stitchin invented it, just for the record, Stitchin didn't invent Planet X. He actually, his thing was the Nibiru, and I mean it's the same really, but I mean I think this came along even well before him, didn't it?
Well, I'm going to be a little passive here because I have had other people come out towards me just recently and sent me their online video of his determination of the chemtrails and the alleged UFOs and all these other things. And when I watched it, and this is just going to be astounding what I'm fixing to say. Okay. I watched all 2.5 hours and me trying to respond to everybody buying the book and all that too at the same time. He accidentally crossed, and being a video editor, he used two certain filters, like the guy that came on the other night somewhere about they had this thing they could actually see what's in the skies. Yeah. Well, he started beginning to see things in all of the videos, and he put them together. It's been since 2012. I'm surprised I never crossed paths with this guy. But what he said, it's the YouTube video that's called "What Is in Our Sky." I mean, it's obvious. Big question. Well, when he broke it down, acquired some very interesting, detailed documentations of the X-17 or the 71. I forgot which one it was, but when he analyzed all this information and put it in his comments, it hit me right upside the head. Oh my God, it's in my book. And it's also in the air of the chemtrails. It's the nanobot technology. Well, they have certain cloud formation. People think it's all this, it's all this whatever. It's our own military that are making these things. Believe in them because it's a hologram technology, super hologram technology. The metals in the air and the ships they use are invisible, and they have multiple attached, and they're drones, thousands. In fact, there's 30,000 plus mama ships that detach from under. It's like an aircraft carrier, and I'm gonna be doggone if I didn't catch one on video at sundown today. Had the exact same features that he's showing everybody, and it just blew me right out of the water. And you can go look at it on my Facebook page to tell everybody, yeah, Ben's right. Well, I don't want to be the one to pop everybody's bubble about Nibiru, but
well, I do want to look at it. I'm going to bring it up here.
I'm going to text it to you. Hang on, just a sec. I don't want the server to go down yet.
Okay, and let's get Dave's opinion. David, what do you think about this? Nanobot.
I'll tell you now. If Nibiru never comes, I'll be the happiest man on this planet.
Right.
But myself, I believe there's so many changes going on. Whether it's Nibiru or not, if a catastrophe hits, the result's going to be the same. It could be Nibiru, it could be a meteor, it could be anything. So I certainly believe there's something out there that's coming our way. There's been so many pictures that have been sent to me, and they're not all lens flares. There's something out there.
I'm fixing to tell you what
holographic, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm fixing to tell you what it is. It's the super hologram program that the United States Air Force has and has been using since they started doing this. It's to generate mass chaos and fears in individual, like the religions. They're gonna, and it's been talked about all over the internet. A fake alien invasion, or a fake religious thing, or now the Nibiru crap. So what they're doing is they're generating through the internet and all the social networks the fear factors of making everybody believe. Like, I mean, you see it on television, everybody's going to be a zombie, and here you go with Trump and all their issues. Oh, I'm going to build a wall, and there's so much collusion about nonsense that nobody really sees what's going on. It's because some guy found accidentally and remade the videos that we have invisible aircraft that hover and are spreading. I watched it myself today. I watched a cloud come out of nowhere.
Well, I'm watching the video now, and so I guess then it's an invisible spacecraft. So then I shouldn't expect to see it because so far all I see is clouds. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic.
Well, I want you to go. He's got 19. I mean, I'm not going to try to make y'all do this time. Just everybody view it. It's the one that's labeled holograms. But to understand what he's talking about at that point in his presentation, you got to watch all of it and how he accidentally crossed. I mean, it's man-made. It's American-made.
I wonder what the end goal is.
But here's who really knows what it's for? Well, I figured it out today when I saw it myself. And a chemtrail feeds it once they start generating these clouds, and then sometimes you see a chemtrail. And I know everybody watches them. There's like a dark spot in them. That's the bent light, the technology they have on the skin of the ships that makes it look like. Well, who was the guy that made the Statue of Liberty disappear? Remember that?
I know what you're talking about.
David Copperfield. They put cameras in a 360 circle, and the technology is so minute they can zero in and read your name on your tag from 150 miles up. So if you imagine having so many tiny of these 360 around the Statue of Liberty, right? And they're taking a picture of the city, the ocean, the stars, and they reverse it back into the television. Onto the actual thing, so it just disappears. No matter what angle you go, it's kind of like the Matrix thing when they slowed the movie down and you can see all the bullets going through. Well, what they're doing is they're creating a television screen in the atmosphere, and when they've got it fully saturated, because they're continually to add all this stuff, they're going to project what you see and hear on the internet, on television, and there's your doomsday.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll look at these videos. I watched a couple of them on your Facebook page just now while you were talking.
But the one I uploaded today, and you're going to see it, it's in the exact same cloud formation, and me talking, going, oh, I believe I just saw that. Really? So enjoy it. I don't want to steal the show, and I know you and I got one coming up, and it's going to be fun.
All right. Thanks for the call, Ben. I appreciate it. Dave, I don't know. What's your thoughts? I looked at the videos. Basically, I guess what he's telling me is that the cloud formation that I'm seeing is actually part of that craft, or the invisible craft. I've had someone else tell me that there's cloud UFOs, and okay. I guess I'm certainly not going to say it's not possible. It's okay. It might be. We're talking about a planet coming, and, so possibilities are endless, right?
Well, it's like anything else. The technology they've got today, we don't know about. They're probably, leaps and bounds ahead of what we know of today. So, I don't rule anything out.
Yeah.
Because my only question is, what is the purpose? Is it control? Like you said, fearmonger, creating fear in people, or what? What's the end result?
Well, you got to wonder if planet Earth hasn't been turned into one big giant research lab.
Yeah, well, you could take it to the nth degree too. Some people say that the moon is really not real. It's like a big balloon.
Yeah.
Or the Earth is flat.
So, my Lord, yes, the flat Earth. This comes up often.
That's been hitting the web a lot. I'm sort of chuckling to myself, but.
So then there might be a flat Planet X coming at us.
But you know what? I'd like to say this though. For those of your listeners that maybe can't get through or whatever, all they have to do if they want to contact me and ask me questions, by all means, go to planetxnews.com and leave me a message on there. I always answer everybody.
Okay, great. And I've got a few questions here in the chat. Let's see. Bear says 3 questions for David. What part of Canada is he from? That's the first one.
Okay.
Number 2, how close to a nuclear plant does he live? And number 3, where would he recommend getting prepper food in Canada?
That's a good one. Well, I live in southern Ontario, probably about an hour north of Niagara Falls.
Okay.
I live probably about a 3-hour drive from a nuclear plant in either direction, like east or west. Prepper food, that's a tough one because I've been looking for myself. So if he finds out a good place to get it, whether it's inexpensive, then I'm with him. I'll just let me know because I have been looking. I've also been looking for bulletproof vests too. But
not a bad idea.
So hopefully that answers the question.
Okay, yeah. Well, if you ever run into Trump, he might sell you one of those bulletproof vests.
He's probably got a whole wardrobe of them.
I bet he does. Yeah. So I'm okay. Like when we took off for the break, trying to get my train of thought back here. I was talking about the possibilities of technologies and those being mistaken for what, or vice versa, and just not knowing, what I see. I mean, we could attribute some of the changes, a lot of the changes here on Earth. It could be one of two things. Well, one of three things. It could be a natural cycle of the Earth. It could be Planet X, or some of it, or all of it, could be mankind doing it. And I don't mean by starting their SUVs. I'm not fooled by global warming, but I have I'm not going to argue that things are changing, but I think that when they say man-made, they're leaving out that they're spraying stuff in our skies and this and that. So what's your thoughts on that? I mean, how can we tell what's what? Do you know? Do you have a secret?
No, I think today it's hard to know the truth. And that's what I've been trying to find out, is the truth. It's one of the hardest things ever to do, because all I see is many, many lies. I mean, you take a look at CERN. What's that for? Yeah. Colliding molecules together like that. I mean, what else is it used for? Same as HARP. What's that being used for? I've actually seen some video of a beam of light coming right out of HARP, right into outer space. Why? But the thing is, you never find out what the real reason is.
I know, and it's really frustrating, because that's all I want is the truth too. I mean, if you told me tonight that, hey, Mickey Mouse is God and extraterrestrials helped Mickey Mouse make you, and oh, by the way, a planet's coming, it'll be here such and such a day, and it's going to destroy the world. I mean, I wouldn't change my plans tonight. I'd do this. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised by any of this, but I just want to know. I mean, I'm not going to go rioting and beating someone up with a baseball bat. I just want the truth.
Yeah, well, I think the way it's going to play out is it's going to hit us really hard when something does happen, whatever it is, whether it be Planet X or whatever, it's going to hit us really hard, and I think there's a lot of people who are going to be in a lot of trouble. So like you said, there's nothing wrong. It's intelligent to be prepared for any scenario, whether you believe in Planet X or not. Like I said, I'm not here to persuade people to believe in that either. I mean, I believe in it myself because of the evidence that I've researched for 6 years. And I do get people that, I talk to, and they'll come up with their ideas within like a 20-minute conversation and say, no, it's not possible. And I say, well, what'd you base that on? And, they have a hard time, answering that one. But it's about keeping an open mind.
And that's one of the reasons I liked having you on, is because I know you believe in Planet X. You're not trying to sell it; you believe it. And
yeah, exactly. I mean, if my next door neighbor doesn't believe in it, that's fine. That's a choice. I mean, we have freedom to do that, and I like to maintain the freedom, but I think the freedom's been taken away and we're being controlled. And I don't like that.
I would agree. Now, what's your thoughts on Planet 9? I was reading some of your articles, and at least at one point, it seemed that you thought Planet 9 was a decoy.
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's been so much hype about Planet X now, because it's really, really taken off like a rocket. And it's flooded, the alternative news. Yeah. And I think that NASA had to come out with something just to divert the attention away from Planet X, and saying, well, there's one right out there, but it's not sort of headed our way. But we've discovered it, and it's out there, just to satisfy people. Say, yeah, see, it's not Planet X, it's Planet 9, it's way out there. We're just going to carry on, go to work, and pay our taxes. So I do believe that's a decoy. I believe a lot of things are decoy, and I believe that the government has a relationship with Hollywood too. And I think all those movies that have come out, I think there's a certain amount of truth to how this is going to play out, and they know it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, that's my personal belief. I mean, people tell me I'm out to lunch, or they look at me like a two-headed camel, which is fine. But I mean, I don't know what it is. It's just that I take a lot of convincing. And like I said to you, I spent 2 years trying to convince myself of that, that it was true or it was false. I was either way, But with all the evidence that I've seen, and I look at what the government's doing, what the world governments are doing, and they're all doing the same thing. Russia, China, Japan. I believe that England's going to suffer greatly, and I don't think that you'll find that the Royals will be there. I think they'll be at Denver Airport, underground. They have a little complex there too, by the way. So,
yeah, I think a lot of different countries have prepared in different ways. I see strange stuff all the time. Look at China; they made all these cities. It's like ghost cities,
and they're empty.
Yeah, I mean, what is that all about?
Exactly. Well, in Switzerland itself, Switzerland has enough underground shelters to encompass our entire population.
Jeez.
So, you look at the seed bank in Finland. There's millions upon millions of seeds stored there from every country in the world. And then you look at Australia. I mean, I hear from people all over the world. I've got, from Colombia to Australia, to India, and they tell me what's going on in their country. So you're getting it firsthand. I mean, there's so many things going on in Australia that's not being reported. Massive flooding there too. Extreme heat. We've blown every record in the book for extreme heat, ever.
Yeah.
So what is causing that? Nobody's come up and given me a good explanation to say this is it. I mean, they're talking about, the cold spell was a vortex. Why did we hear about a vortex 30 years ago?
Yeah.
All of a sudden they come up with these fancy names to distract what's really happening. And they say, global warming, the North Pole's melting. Well, sure it is. It's melting from the bottom up because the volcanoes are active. The South Pole's got more ice down there than it's ever had. So, the global warming stuff, I think, is another lack of a better word, a bunch of crap.
It is. It's a farce, and I've spoke to a gentleman who was involved with the climate study. He came out and talked about it on my show years ago, and a couple times. And I mean, he showed the facts. The data has been tampered with. They never even looked at satellite data that would have showed that the planet is not warmed at all. It's not that the planet's warming. It's there's things going on in the atmosphere that are triggering weather patterns. I mean, you look at Texas. All the flooding they just had, and then Florida with the hurricane. I mean, you would expect things like that with hurricanes, but I mean, we're seeing a lot of activity, earthquakes in places where they don't normally get earthquakes.
Correct.
Yeah, all kinds of flooding, and every time there's a storm, it's this is historical. They're all historical now.
I know we break it. I mean, Britain was in floods. It's like Europe too. It's everywhere. And I think all this stuff has not been correlated and put in a package and put on the news and say this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. And here's the reason why. Nobody's done that. No. Everybody's keeping it quiet and hushed. And, we're not getting news anymore.
No, they read off their teleprompters.
There's no investigative reporting anymore. It's like with the CNN, and it was on the internet too. They're using actors now to interview for disasters. They use the same person for the Boston bombing as they did for 9/11 as they did for the train wreck. The same woman.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what woman comes out of a train wreck with her glasses on, not broken? It's like that blows me away. So I mean, the problem being is we're so busy with our lives, Michael. I think that people just take a quick glimpse and believe what they see on the TV. I mean, I can remember my grandmother saying, it's on TV, it's got to be true. I know, and we're into that kind of, sort of information, zombie-like sort of mentality.
Well,
I mean, I go to the cafeteria at work, and it's like looking at a bunch of zombies because every one of them's got a cell phone around with their heads down. Nobody's talking. It's quiet as a mouse. I thought it was in a library.
Yeah, I see that if I go to a restaurant or anything. That's the way it is. Everybody's looking down at their phones. I'll elbow my kid and I'll say, look at all the zombies. Look at them all slaving to their technology. So, you think about, you're talking about you're always having an interest in ET and alien and UFOs. Me too. And boy, if you were an ET and you wanted to take over this planet, or you wanted to even just study the planet or experiment with people on this planet, how easy it is. Just hook up to all the satellites out there, and you're hearing every phone call. I mean, it's like space NSA. And now they get these devices. Let's put these devices in their hands, and we'll get these people so attached to them that eventually the mind control, which is probably happening, is probably right through these devices that they hold. We're sitting there and we're looking and going, look at these fools. They're with family. Why don't they talk? Why are they looking at their phones? When in reality, they're probably being, hit with a frequency and mind controlled. I mean,
Well, I'll tell you, personally, I hate texting.
I don't even have a cell phone.
If you need to tell me that, bad, phone me.
I gave up my cell phone in 2010, October of 2010, and I've never looked back.
Unfortunately, I can't give that up. I use it for work, but
yeah,
but, I'd be like you, give it up. I mean, I'd much rather go back to the simple life, where you grow your own food and you look after yourself.
well, exactly, and go back to landlines where, you know what, when I get home, I'll check the answer machine rather than somebody bothering me every 5 seconds or sending me a cute picture of their cat or whatever they're doing. I mean, I don't know. I gave up my phone. I used to smoke too, gave that up. So, it feels good when you free yourself from certain slavery. And I look at these things as slavery. It is, yeah, we need, they made it where you got to have these phones. I get that. If you're certain jobs, you have to have them. But it's like with everything. They've brainwashed people. And then they say, I've had people say, well, how can they afford to do all this to us? Easy. They put out the devices and you buy them. I mean, when you're watching TV, your TV's watching you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering about this Planet X. The hype that's going on there right now, and I'm sure there's people out there that's got to be totally confused. I mean, really totally confused. And I get that. And I understand that. I mean, they're going to have to go through probably the same process I have. What I'm trying to do is, by putting it on the Planet X News, is try to shorten that amount of time for them, so that at least they can be prepared. Even if it only comes by and creates a massive flood, you still need to survive, right?
Yeah.
So it's frustrating in a way. I'll give people a card and say, if you got any questions, give me a call or email me. They never ever do. There's one or two reasons: that they don't believe me, think I'm completely out to lunch, or they're too afraid to.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, that's, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be taking a trip from South Carolina here to New York next week. And what I do when I hit the road, it's all, people say, oh, nice, you're going on vacation. No, not really. My work, I'm always doing this. This never leaves me. I got boxes of cards. I'll be passing out cards. I got extra books here that the authors send me, extra ones to hand out. I'll be handing those out. I'll be getting the word out. And I bring up conversation when I come to these people. I'll shake their hand, tell them, hey, this is what I do. Have you heard about cancer cures? Have you heard about Planet X? Have you heard, and I bring these things up. And this, I love it. I mean, I love it going around when I get a chance to do it. I'm also going to be taking a trip to Minnesota later this month as well. And on the way, same thing. Cards, I stop in every state. I stop at those welcoming centers. I go and I force the truth on people, whether they like it or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's like, I know, like, remember that story about, getting into UFOs a little bit, about Travis Walton, Fire in the Sky. You remember that movie?
The most credible UFO abduction story I think that exists. I think it's the most credible, in my opinion.
Well, he's coming to my city, and we have next month an alien cosmic expo going on. And fortunately for me, because I write for PlanetXNews.com, I'm allowed to go in there as a reporter. So I did it last year, and I did some features on some people there last year. We had Stanford Freeman there, the nuke guy, and Paul Hillier, which was our ex-defense minister, and a number of other people, prominent people that have written books and so on and so forth. So this year Travis Walton's supposed to be here, so I'm looking forward to that and having a chat with that fellow.
I've been looking forward to having a chat with Travis Walton for a while, and for some reason he's not. I guess he's not easy to get on your show because he's told me, yeah, give me a month. One time he did say he would, but I've not been able to get him land a date and get him on. And I've talked to Steve Pierce, who was part of his crew that night. I talked with him, but not Travis yet. And it'll happen one of these days. He'll be on.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you'll get him. I mean, you got a good show going here, and I'm really enjoying being on with you, and I really appreciate it. So it's been a lot of fun, and I encourage people to phone in and ask questions because, like I said, I've been at this about 6 years now, and that's a long time to maintain a faith.
It really is. It really is. But you're right when you say a faith. But I mean, there is evidence that points towards it. So it's not like I could think of other things that could be more felt on faith than Planet X even.
I mean, if someone tells me, oh, it's not that, it's this, and can prove it to me, then I'm fine with that. But I mean, until that time, it's when I look at sort of like the some of the people like Marshall Masters, for example, like I'll follow his stuff, and when he went down to the Antarctic and actually filmed from the telescope down there, Planet X, because it was below the ecliptic. So when you see that, and I find it incredible, but when you see that, it's got to have some validity to it.
I have a little bit of a history with Marshall Masters. He used to be a regular late night in the Midlands. I used to have him on quite often, actually, and loved having him on. Loved talking to him. I thought it was a lot of fun and informative. I thought, and one day one of the listeners directed me to one of his videos, which I've watched, but I missed this. And in the video, he showed me where this object that was supposed to be Planet X was actually in front of the clouds. And I thought, that's odd. How can that be? So I emailed Marshall, and I says, hey, how you doing? I says, listen, so-and-so sent me this, and I think there might be a mistake, and da-da-da. I says, can we talk? And we were pretty friendly. So I said, can we talk about it or whatever? It doesn't have to be on air. We could talk off air or whatever. And the response I got back from him was F off.
Oh.
Yeah, so his credibility with me has gone down the hill, but that's with me. I'm not telling you that you have to feel that way, but I mean, any real researcher, I would think that, especially when you've been kind to them and you ask them, hey, can we? I see a flaw here. Can we talk about it? And then they give you that response. I don't know, but I mean, he's one of those. As long as you're on his side, yay. But as soon as you question him, he's not too happy about that. But
I'm not as shocked as probably what you think I am.
Yeah. But
so the thing is, it comes down to this, and I know, and I respect you greatly because I know you're like I am. You want that truth. You don't want any of the bull that goes along with all this other stuff, all the hype that some people have, and you're right. Some people do it just to make a lot of money, and there's some other people that I've seen too. I know that. Jesse Ventura challenged David Icke to one time.
Yeah.
And I watched that program and I went, wow, because David Icke sort of ran away, type of deal. But
Alex Jones instigated that.
Yeah, well, yes.
He did a little bit. He says the guy you want to go talk to is David Icke. Yeah. He sent him over there.
Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, I'm not. I'll be honest. I'm not in this for the money because there isn't any.
Right. Well, you're right.
Okay.
There isn't.
There's none for me. I absolutely do this for nothing. So, if people think I'm doing this, making a lot of money, well, sorry, there's no money in it. I do this for free. This is more like when I was retired, it was more like to help put in my time and stuff like that. But then, once I got into it and really started to believe it, then it was like, wow, it's more of a hobby than anything else, or a service. Let's put it that way, a free service to people out there that want that information. I mean, I do, like I said, I get ridiculed quite often, but, either on the website or verbally, like in front of me, but, I mean, that's fine, too. I believe what I believe, and it's as simple as that. I know that something's coming down the pipe. I have this very eerie feeling that it's going to come soon.
A lot of people hold that feeling. I mean, I've had people who've told me that they've had dreams about these things happening, and I'm all for. I want to hear people's dreams and all that stuff. So if anybody, if you've got an idea what's coming down the pike, we'd love to hear from you. If you've got a question, we'd love to hear from you. We're going to take our last break here in just a couple minutes, and then you'll have your last opportunity for call-ins, folks. Would love to hear from you. But David, there's I've had many guests on. Some of them, I'm still friends with, and they, I still have them on periodically. But I have them on for the conversation, and it's like, okay, so it didn't happen when you said it was going to happen. But they really do believe it's coming. Now, the ones I have the problem with are the ones who, if you're going to be a real researcher, then, you got to expect that people are going to come at you with some tough questions, and you should be willing to. And I mean, I grant you don't entertain the trolls, because there's trolls in every field, no matter what you cover.
Yep.
But you know, they should expect a little scrutiny and expect to have to defend some of their work and you know, so those are the ones I like to have on, because sometimes we get listeners who, you know, they're all over the place. They point stuff out. Now, I had one guy who's mentioned in the chat room, so I'll bring it up. But he, you know, at first I thought he was a listener and stuff, and then he got a hold of me. He insisted he had to talk to me. And so I went ahead and did private conversation with him, which I don't do too often, because I find a lot of time people waste your time and they just want to hold you up or what have you. But I did. And he showed me a video, and you know, he showed me the flaw in, for instance, Marshall in his video. And, you know, and after that, though, he became really persistent. I mean, he got to the point where he was ticking me off. And I started going after him because he started getting to the point where, like, it was a sin to even talk about Planet X. I said, okay, I'll meet you halfway. That picture was no good, and Marshall, you know, certainly don't want to answer to it. But that doesn't mean everybody who talks about Planet X is full of it.
That's correct.
So.
I mean, I met a guy at a shooting range close to where I live, and he didn't know who I was, but I was going to be interviewed with Discovery Channel. We'd had several conversations on the phone, and they actually did an interview with me for about 2 hours, and they were going to do, I guess you got a program there called The American Hero?
We might. I'll be honest with you, I don't follow the TV too well.
Yeah, but anyway, it runs more in the States. I think you can get it here, but it's rare. But they were going to do that, and it was basically on, they didn't want to have the hillbilly preppers. They wanted to have ordinary, everyday, middle-class people, you know, how are they preparing for this, you know, and why do you believe it, and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, they, you know, maybe because I was from Canada and not the States, I don't know, but, you know, it got cut at the end, at the last minute. But I was, you know, disappointed because I was looking forward to it. And they were going to do a film shoot, you know, with me at the house, and then go to the shooting range. So I arranged with the shooting range that, you know, that we'd be coming down there with a camera crew, and I was talking to this one fellow here, and he asked me why, and I explained to him. He goes, I know all about that. He says, he showed me a picture on his phone. He said, I was taking a picture of a plane. He says, and it was my wife that noticed a little white dot to the right of the sun. She says, well, what's that? When you actually blow it up, you can see it's like a planet with planets orbiting this planet. And I had a guy, a semi-professional photographer, take a look at it. He said, well, it's not lens flare, and it's not a sundial. So he said, I can't explain what it is. And I posted it, actually, on one of my stories on Planet X News. And, I mean, people did come back to me and say, you know, it's a lens flare. But not every picture is a lens flare.
That's true. Not every picture is a lens flare. And speaking of heroes, my cat Kepler, he's my little hero. You know, he's funny, this cat. We got what's called palmetto bugs. That's what they call them here in South Carolina. And what they really are, it looks like a roach on steroids. Well, these things, they fly, and you know, you open the door, they'll fly in or whatever sometimes. And when it gets hot out there, they sometimes could be really pesty. And my cat, he won't mess with them. He won't jump on them and do what a cat should do, but he'll always warn me when they're there. It's like he tells me. He taps me. He stares at it. He's like, you know, Daddy, look, you got to see this. So thank you, Kepler. So that problem is taken care of. These things are huge. They're like dinosaurs.
Wow.
But
live up here.
But you know, I hear you with the whole TV thing. You know, I was on my first TV show that I had ever been on. I had Survive. What the heck? Survived? I think that's what it's called. But anyways, it was about ghost stuff, you know. And so I did it. That went through. It went nice. It went well. They treated me well, and so, you know, that was my only experience. So as far as, I didn't know that they cut you like that once they, you know, contact you to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but
you know, I mean, that's show business, right?
Well, I guess so. Yeah, it is. I mean, in my episode, they interviewed my daughter too, but they cut her out. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, when people ask me, well, you know, I mean, you know, they say, well, wouldn't it be better if I went up north and, you know, stayed in a log cabin and, you know, looked after myself there? I said, well, yes, but I mean, you'd have a hard time surviving on your own. I said, because you need a group of people. You need a minimum of about 150 people with all different skills in order to survive. I said, you need people that are able to protect that group. You need, you know, medical people. You need all kinds of different skills, so you can at least maintain some sort of standard of life.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Okay.
you know, I mean, it's fine if you live out in the country, you got lots of land and wood and water and you know, stuff like that. I mean, that's a good thing. But I mean, you can't stay awake 24 hours to keep an eye on it in case somebody comes and wants to take it away from you.
That's right. That's right. And the show is Paranormal Survivor, by the way. See, it's
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So you probably know. I think it's really based in Canada. But anyhow, so yeah, you know, and that's the thing. And despite taking water from you, again, I go back to the nuclear power plants, and that would be the biggest, I guess, the biggest problem I see happening is when the power goes out. I mean, those things are going to probably be a last priority.
Well, I mean, they've got standby generators and stuff, but I mean, obviously they require fuel too to keep running, diesel fuel or whatever. And you know, once that fuel runs out, then it'll take a little while, but I mean, it will eventually the water will evaporate, and there they are.
Yeah.
All the fueling rods just left there.
Yeah, not good at all. Well, hang on with me one more time, Dave. And we're going to take a break here, and we'll come back, and we'll take any calls if we get them. Again, last chance for calls. There is a couple questions in the chat, so private message to me, and I'll get to those as well. David, one of our listeners asked, what would be, in your opinion, the best places to be when this happens?
Well, from what I understand, Saskatchewan or Manitoba here in Canada is probably one of the best places to be. Certainly inland, if you're in the U.S. I think it's Denver, which is like 4,000 feet above sea level, I believe.
Oh yeah, Denver, Colorado.
Yeah, a lot of the Fortune 500 companies seem to have moved their head offices there, along with some of the government offices as well. I thought that was kind of strange.
Yeah. What about the DUMS? I guess that would be the underground facilities said to be in New Mexico, or I guess the same ones that Jesse Ventura went to.
Yeah, there's 130 of them.
Oh, there are 130 of them.
There's 130 of them interconnected by interstate highway.
Holy smoke, that's a lot. I didn't know there was that many. I knew there was a lot, that they were big, but I had no idea.
Yeah, and they've got a very fast underground train, I believe. There's Mach 2 or something.
Yeah.
All done by magnets or whatever, or some sort of propulsion. I don't know.
No.
But yes, the actual best place to be is way up north of Canada. But I mean, it gets really cold in the winter. But I mean, if the Earth does a pole shift itself, like the whole Earth, then we'll end up here in where I live. We'll probably end up at the equator.
At the equator, yeah. So, you know, but when the land, I guess some people probably pictured, okay, so the land will move, and they might look at it like an amusement park ride, like they just hang on and they'll be okay. Well, I don't think it's going to be that smooth, is it?
No, it's going to be probably one of the roughest rides they've ever had. But there'll be a lot of earthquakes, a lot of volcanoes blowing off like crazy. It's going to be pandemonium. Unfortunately, I know what's predicted is there'll be a great loss of life. And that bothers me.
Yeah, there will be. And for those who think they're going to survive in these underground facilities, you know, I think that they're honestly, to me, it seems like they're underestimating the power of what's going to happen. I mean, can man build something strong enough to withstand that kind of power from nature? I mean, I see them being crushed like sardines and being stuck in those things.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's been predicted too. That will end up being there too, and but I don't know. It's one of those things where I understand why they're not telling us, but on the other hand, I wish they would.
Right.
You know, I mean, let's face it. If you knew in a year's time that we're going to be in big trouble, I mean, really, what would you do?
I guess
people have to really think about it, right? I mean, you got to live and eat, but I mean, the thing is, I don't think everybody would be going to work.
No, I don't think so either. And at that point, I would think, well, what do we have to lose? If people would start looking for the entrances to these underground facilities, there would be a lot. I mean, look what they do to stop a Trump rally. Imagine what they do if they knew they had a week left or even a year left. They'd be tearing the earth apart looking for these things.
Oh, I believe so. Yeah, I know from what I understand, and I can't confirm this, but from what I understand is they are training foreign troops to do the urban warfare in the United States, because the American troops won't go against the Second Amendment and take away people's right to bear arms. So they won't remove the guns. But people from other countries, soldiers from other countries, would care.
Yeah.
So I believe that they've been training Russian soldiers.
Well, we do. There's Russian troops who are here, and there's Chinese troops that are here, and there's UN troops that are here. A lot of this has been reported in Hawaii and different parts of the country, as a matter of fact. But, I've not seen it with my own eyes, but I would say that the information's come from a few sources that I feel reliable, people I trust.
Well, I mean, I wonder about that because of the sanctions that the Americans or you guys have put on Russia. Why would they send troops over? That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it could. Well, this was before that I heard about the Russian troops, but
yeah.
So they might be kicked out of here now. But then again, the sanctions and all that could all be a show and dance for us.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. The problem being there's so many secrets. We're oblivious to really what is going on.
Yeah, we are. Yeah,
and so that's why I'm preparing for any kind of scenario that I could possibly think of. I build in medical supplies, I build it up, knowledge, having the books and stuff, hard copies and all that sort of stuff. Keep a good supply of water and tools and everything that you can possibly need to hopefully to survive. I have, and. So doing that, other people doing that, there's nothing wrong with that.
I got one of the last interviews with Ann Eller. She wrote a book, an older woman, and one of the last questions I asked her was, what are you yourself doing to prepare for this if you believe in it so much? And she said, at my age, and she laughed while she said it, and she said, at my age, she says, I'm not doing anything. She says, I'm just, I'm not going to survive it. I already know that, she said, but my job is to warn other people about it. So, so there are some people who are taking that approach to, well, if it happens, it happens, and I'm not going to do anything. It's they're really, for those people who have faith in God, really have faith in God. Some of them are really putting that faith in God and saying, well, if there is a God, then whatever's supposed to happen will happen.
Yeah, I know. It's funny because when you think about people who will believe in God before they believe in Planet X, and I say that, and I'll clarify that, is the fact that we've never seen God, and potentially we've never seen Planet X, or at least I haven't, right? So, but I believe in God, so why wouldn't I believe in Planet X? There's millions and billions of planets out there. There's nothing to say there's not one heading our way.
That's right. That's right.
So people have to keep an open mind and not be so narrow-minded, because I think it's all the the TV and all that sort of stuff really makes you very narrow-minded, because now we're living in more of a cocoon world than we've ever done.
And, well, and I think there's a good portion of people who have been turned off by the disinformation that gets put out there. So some people, I don't blame them for going, oh, this again, because they've been told that the world was going to end so many times and it never happens. Yeah. But meanwhile, these guys keep cashing in on it. And so, but I love it. There's one guy, I won't mention no names, but there's one guy who, because I don't have problems with him, I have any, but he sells some kind of machine that's supposed to rejuvenate your frequencies and make you healthy. But he's preaching Planet X and talking about how I got survival foods and this and that. And I'm thinking, well, why the hell would I want to buy the machine if Planet X is coming? Where am I plugging it in?
That's good fun. So that's really good. But people will buy it.
They will. And so I look at stuff like that and I think, well, if you really believe that this is coming, I don't think you're going to be selling machines to people that they got to plug in and tell them that these are going to help you in a time of crisis, because, again, where you're plugging them in. So, yeah, I look at stuff like that. That's where I kind of make my decisions on who's really believing it and just trying to warn people, and who is trying to profit from it.
I know. And you've heard the story of Peter and the Wolf.
Oh, I have, yes.
Right. Okay, so when you look at all the false flags that have been promoted, and I say that, such as the Millennium 2000, planes are going to drop out of the sky. It was all over the news, right? So they didn't fly that day, when the clock ticked over to 2000. But nothing happened. And then you take, it's the Mayan calendar, 2012, the end of the world. So they come out with a movie. And, people then see, nothing.
Yeah.
So, what I'm saying is, it's like Peter and the wolf. And eventually, guess what? The wolf's going to come and eat Peter.
Yeah, that's right.
Eat the sheep.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of time. I mean, the evidence, I believe, is out there, being the extreme weather, the volcanoes, the sinkholes, the volcanoes, and when you've got all the planets out there with all the weather going wacky, the moon, the meteorites coming in, all that sort of stuff, something is making all that happen.
That's
so
right.
It's not so far-fetched to believe there is a planet out there. How soon it will come, who knows?
Well, we've got nothing but time, right? So.
The longer it takes, the better prepared you can be.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I've said it myself. It's if it never comes, I'm not going to get angry. It's just
me either.
I hope it don't. To be honest with you, now there's some people who get mad when it don't happen. They're angry. I mean, if you tell them, even if you tell them it's not going to happen, they get really mad. Some people are really looking forward to the arrival of this thing.
Well, I understand why they get mad. I think it's because they feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
Because they probably told a whole bunch of people, and now they're getting ripped. So now they feel mad because now they're going to get, they're going to be the recipient of a lot of ridicule. So, and I understand that. Even some of my family say, well, and when is it going to happen? And, and they sort of chuckle, and I go, well, I don't really know, but I'm just being prepared. Well, nothing happened this day. And they said, well, something was going to happen. I said, well, some people do make wild predictions.
Well, I had a guy who was a guest and used to come into our chat, and he used to tell us that the moon was going to implode on a certain day, and that day finally rolled around and nothing happened. And boy, we don't hear from him at all no more. Just disappeared.
Well, all you really need, and just for your listeners too. I mean, don't worry about Planet X necessarily. All you need is an X-class flare big enough. It will knock out all the electronics, including the power plants.
And it could even do more than that. I mean, it could, depending on the strength of it.
Yes. Have you got a real big one? It happened back in the 1800s. So we had a big one there, but we didn't have a lot of electronic. All we had was the telegraph wires. But it completely blew those up. But you've got a strong enough X-class flare. It can knock out just about everything. Cars won't work, anything, all the electronic ones. And then you're still going to have to survive because it would take a long time to get the power back up.
Yeah, absolutely.
6 months to a year to get any sort of hydro going, probably, if not longer. So, what do you do in that time? No manufacturing of food. So you really got the same scenario do you have when you have with Planet X coming by. You're still going to have no food, no water.
Yeah. And some people are preparing for not just themselves but for their neighbors. I think the best scenario is that you get to know your community. I understand in some neighborhoods that's impossible, but in some communities, if you've got normal, good, law-abiding neighbors, and you might want to get together with some of them and come up with a plan. Maybe you don't want to tell them, okay, Planet X, because they're going to think you're crazy. Just tell them, hey, if there's ever an emergency that nationwide or something, we should have a plan.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. And I remember years ago when I was a kid, we knew all the neighbors. I'm lucky if I know 3 or 4, and I've lived here for 16 years.
Yeah. In my area here where I live, I know the neighbors next door to me, but that's it. I know them as hello, goodbye.
Yeah. Oh no, I know. And you get people that drive home, the garage door opens, and the car goes, and that's it. You don't see them come out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And if they are out, they're on the back deck and looking at the phone.
Yeah.
So communication has ceased as regards to people talking to each other. Even like you say, when you go to a restaurant, that's what people are doing. They're not communicating. They're communicating by electronically with somebody else.
Yeah, people are so used to disconnecting with social medias and stuff. Like when they had enough of you just clicking the button saying the hell with him, I'm done. And now, and when you're interacting with people in person now, you can tell who is so overly connected to technology they can't handle a real conversation. They don't know how to act.
That's correct.
Yeah,
so we've advanced technology-wise, but spiritually-wise, we've gone backwards.
Oh yeah, we have gone backwards, and I think, of course, it's all intentional. And unfortunately, I think when we finally find out exactly why, it's probably going to be, as somebody said in the chat room, we'll be being loaded on the buses. We won't know until we actually walk through the door. That's what's happening. That's what happens to the cows, the chickens. They don't know what's going to happen until they're in line for it to happen, and then it's too late.
But I got a question for you.
Sure.
Why would the Catholic Church have one of the biggest telescopes in the world and name it Lucifer?
That is a great question, and I've asked that question before, and the only abnormal answer I got was someone says, well, the telescope was actually already there, and it already had that name, but they rented it, is what somebody tried to tell me about it. But the fact is, the Vatican, no matter what, is using it, and that is the name. And
yeah, I think they actually built it, to be honest with you. But
okay, they probably did.
And my question, too, is because the Pope really had to go at Trump about him building that wall between the U.S. and Mexico. He says you don't need walls. And why is there a 20-foot wall around the Vatican?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean,
Well, and then you could ask other questions too, and get even deeper and say, okay, look at ISIS. They hate Christianity. Da da da. How come they're not? Nothing's happened to the Vatican. I'm not saying that I want to see anything happen to anybody, but how come they've not tried to attack them? Is it because of their beautiful wall? Maybe, I don't know.
Well, I think again, all that ISIS and all that stuff is a bunch of hype, and I mean, I think they're real, but I think they're controlled. And
they're a paid army. They're a paid army, and Obama, I think, is the head of it.
Yeah, because when you see Americans getting decapitated or potentially being decapitated, I mean, the America I remember would be marching right in there and just going nuts and just wipe them out. But I don't see that.
No, exactly. It's all, and boy, when Trump mentions about, well, we just got to wipe ISIS right out. That's you get Obama and Clinton and these people. They get angry. They start getting responsive. Like, he just doesn't know how it works. You can't just go in there and do that. Yeah, you can. Listen, if I'm president and you're cutting my people's heads off, I'm wiping you out. I ain't quick, too. It ain't going to be no games, no contracts to my buddies. No, just a well-prepared military that's going to just end it real quick. You stop, what you're doing, or we got to stop it, and that's the way it should be.
Right. So, again, my question is this being choreographed as a distraction from what's really happening? Because, when you see some of the videos, or one of the videos I watched was interesting, was the truckers taking food and supplies into these underground shelters.
I've seen that too.
24/7, 7 days a week. And one guy said this is the fourth time he's been here, and they don't even know what they're carrying. So, they're preparing for something. They don't just load up and let it sit. They're preparing for something.
They are.
Whatever that something is, I want to be prepared for it too.
And, and that's the bottom line with all of this. The bottom line is that, people can argue about everything they possibly want to, but they cannot argue with us when we say that the government is preparing for something. We can all agree on that. So we should be awful concerned as what that something is, because, folks, they're not telling us about it.
There's no transparency at all. I mean, I understand you have to have a certain amount of secrets, from other countries, but I don't think they're being, transparent with the American people. And it's no wonder they're fed up with the politicians, because they're the ones that are keeping everything, under wraps.
Well, that's right.
They're told.
They've taken their golden carrots,
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And so, we know what the most powerful thing is in the world, don't we? And that's, that would be money.
It is, yeah.
And power. So, people want that. And I say to people, too, when I'm talking to them, I say, well, look at this. I said, let's say you're a Bloomberg, Bilderberg, or Rothschild, or whatever. You got all the money in the world. You can buy anything you want.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do for entertainment?
Well, I guess if you put me in that predicament, I'd be doing everything I can to cure diseases, world hunger, making sure that we could advance into space and start colonizing other planets. That's, I mean, in a perfect world, if people like you or I were in charge, these are the things that would be happening.
Yeah, well, that's because you're a nice guy.
Well,
right? You got to look at these people. All they've done really is rape and pillage the working people, and accumulated all the wealth, and so they have to have like a game they can play. So they play with the entire planet and play people like pawns. So it's like a kid going on and playing Warcraft, you know.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe is what they're doing, is just setting things up. Let's have this here, let's have that there, because when you got all the money in the world, you can buy anything you want. You've got to be bored.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, these guys, I don't know if they're putting a lot of their resources into figuring out how they could live forever.
Yeah, well, yeah.
They are. I mean, they're the CEOs of Google's and the founders of these social medias, even Pimpleface, their Facebook guy. These guys, they're putting their billions of dollars into technologies that can keep them alive forever. I know that they're talking about being able to upload their brain waves, everything who they are, I guess, right up into a computer with a brain that can learn. These are the kinds of things that they're hoping for. So your Rothschilds and people like that, they don't ever want to be out of power. I mean, that's how these people think. Yeah,
it's really something to think about. I mean, they're talking about what's that movie I Robot with Will Smith, and you see that's what they're heading towards now.
Yeah,
having those robots, and the same with the movie that Arnold says, I'll be back, and that sort of stuff. So when you get to that point, you kind of wonder.
You do. And David, it's we've already shot through here. We're down to the last few minutes. So what I would like to do first is thank you so much for being here tonight. I have immensely enjoyed conversation with you, and I'd like to give you the floor to get out anything that you'd like, whatever it might be, appearances, websites, you name it. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, and I have to say that I've really enjoyed myself. This time has flown by.
It has.
And, and I really appreciate you having me on, and I'd love to come back anytime. And I got to thank Brad at PlanetXNews.com. He's the one that hooked us up, and he's done that quite a few times for me, and I hope we have represented them as well.
Oh, you have.
And anybody wants to contact me, can go to the site. Hey, get on to become, sign up, be a member. It's free, and put your comments on there and send stuff. And I said, I always give people credit when they send me stuff. I never take it myself. And if you ever read any of my articles, you'll see that I always give the credit for. Someone sends me a photograph, I'll say who it is, provided that's what they want.
Great.
So listen, thank you very much.
All right. Well, hey, thank you, too, and you're welcome back anytime. Stay in touch. We could do these Planet X updates every now and then. I wouldn't mind.
Sure. No, that'd be good, and, maybe we could do a little bit of UFOs, too, at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, next time, maybe we'll get into that. We'll take a couple hours, and we'll just talk about that whole ordeal.
That'll be wonderful. And, just find me an email or whatever, or maybe I'll email you, and we'll keep in contact.
All right. Sounds good. All right.
All right, sir.
Yes. Thank you so much, and have a great night.
Okay, you too. Thanks very much.
Right,
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, everybody. There he goes. And again, we've got him linked up on the homepage. Dave Hines. I've really enjoyed talking with him. I mean,
Thank you for listening to the first hour of Late Night in the Midlands. To finish listening to this episode, go to lnmradionetwork.com and become a subscriber. Becoming a subscriber is easy. There is a link on every page to take you to the subscription page. The cost is low, and you would be supporting Late Night in the Midlands and all of our efforts to bring you the truth. Again, go to lnmradionetwork.com, click on the subscribe button, and you can finish listening to this episode, as well as all of the other shows that are in our archives.
Hello.
Good evening, Dave. This is Michael Vera with Late Night in the Midlands. How are you?
Good evening, Michael. I'm fantastic. How are you?
I am doing just fine, and it's great to talk to you tonight. And I do thank you so much for taking time out to be with us.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure, for sure.
All right. Well, we've got an interesting topic here tonight, and I have been all over the Planet X News website, and I tell you, I find a lot of interesting stuff there. I'm going to be spending a little more time there. It's full of goodies. So I thought maybe we'd start out with a little bit of background and most people probably don't believe when they hear about something like this. So what got you going down this Planet X trail?
Well, I'll tell you the story. I work in the nuclear business, and I was up at a nuclear plant working, and there was a colleague of mine that mentioned the fact about this Planet X. And I've always been interested in, science and the stars and UFOs and all that sort of stuff. So it kind of tweaked my interest, but I really didn't pay a lot of attention to it in the beginning. And then one day I thought, I'll check it out on the web and stuff. And I went around. There was lots of information on this Planet X. And when I got to Planet X News, I kind of liked that site, and I started to read the stuff. And I'll be honest with you, I was a skeptic. I did not believe that there could be this rogue planet with a bunch of others with it coming into our solar system. And I just didn't believe it. It took me, I think, it still got my curiosity, though. And I think it took me 2 years before I'd even believe it. That's how long it took me for researching this stuff, listening to people, find out who was credible, who was not. It took at least that long to find out, who was credible and who was giving out some good information that I could believe.
Right, and that's the key. Who's credible? That's been my experience. I've been doing this for 8.5 years, and I have had several guests on about Planet X. Some of them have now retired and they're not around no more. But a good majority of them, I don't have back on because I've found where they have been. They're just in it to fill their pockets, and they're taking advantage of people. And
you know what? And I agree with you 100%. And when I started to write my articles, and I got started with Planet X News because I was retired, but since gone back to work because of Planet X actually, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But when Planet X News was advertising for writers, I thought maybe I could write one or two, and I contacted Brad and I said I might be able to write one or two. He said okay. He said that's fine. So I started off as a guest writer. And, when I started to write, I couldn't stop. I was probably writing 2 to 3 articles a week.
Nice.
And if you look in the archives of the stuff that I've written, you'll see that if you can find the dates on them, you'll probably see that that's quite true. But the information that I gathered was incredible. But what I wanted to do was, I'm just an ordinary fellow. And I know there's a lot of people out there like myself. They don't have a degree in science. They're not astronomers. They know very little about that stuff at all. But I think they know that they've been lied to or being lied to. And what I wanted to do was sort of, hope they don't object, but try to represent them as an ordinary citizen, so to speak, to try and gather all the information I can and put it on that website.
And I appreciate that, and that's what I want, really, and that's what I set out looking for when I sent out an email and got you here. Is I was looking for, first off, I wanted somebody everybody hasn't plastered all over the place already, and I don't know, honestly. Until I found you, I find that you've been in this and you've been doing this a while, but you and I haven't crossed paths yet. So that was important, and also important as to how serious you take it, and I'm taking it that you take it pretty serious.
Well, you know what? I'll be honest with you. It is scary. And the people that I've spoken to, and I've spoken now to quite a few people throughout the world, and it really affects their families, them and their families. I was astonished that just how much it does affect people. It affects their marriage, their relationships, all this sort of stuff. Because you have one partner that really believes and wants to prep and protect his family, and then you have maybe the wife. Not all in every case, but maybe the wife that thinks the husband's going absolutely crazy.
Yeah. I know of a few people like that where they split up because they couldn't agree.
Yeah, and my wife, God bless her, she doesn't object to me doing this. She supports me in a certain way, but I think she's like most people. They don't really want to know, don't want to believe that it's true. And I think there's a lot of people out there that think the same way. This couldn't possibly happen. We've got nice blue skies and all this sort of stuff. But when I looked at all the evidence of the changes, not only on our planet, but all the other planets in our solar system, that's a matter of record with NASA, that the weather on Venus and all these other planets has gone absolutely haywire. And that just doesn't happen. Something has to cause that to happen.
Yeah, and there's always excuses for this stuff. I mean, I've had some say, "Oh, well, that didn't really happen. People are making that up." But I know for a fact that these other planets have been affected temperature-wise.
Oh, yeah, they have actually violent storms on these planets now, which they never had before. And the rings of Saturn I guess some of the rings have disappeared, and all sorts of stuff is going on. And I think the increase too in meteors, even though NASA said, "Oh, we can track those." They certainly missed the one coming over Russia, and the excuse was it came out from the sun. But I mean, there's been one, I think, in Iraq that really wasn't publicized, and there's been several others too. And the increase has been absolutely dramatic.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, the same with earthquakes. I started to monitor the earthquakes and also sinkholes, as well as extreme weathers like floods. I mean, this is unprecedented, the things that are going on.
And David, if I may, you mentioned earthquakes, and I got to say, I've had Dr. Rand, who is on this, he does a show here, and Peter Kling, they do a show together. Them two have been talking about the earthquakes, and I knew that it picked up, right? But I didn't know, I finally listened to them guys, and I went ahead and I signed up at the USGS website and started getting these earthquakes sent to me, and I want everything that's 5 or more. And I'll tell you what, in the last week I've had I think 4 or 5 that were well over 6 that have come to me. I mean, that's a lot.
I know, and I watched the program when I first started to investigate this. Do you remember the program with Jesse Ventura, Conspiracy Theories?
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
I watched that, and I found that extremely interesting. And they brought up the thing about the underground bunkers that the U.S. had built. And when I realized and dug in deeper and find out more about them and discovered they built over 130 of them, mainly I think they're all actually sort of inland, away from the coast, and they're all interconnected by highway 1.5 miles down. And I'm thinking, well, why would they? If you want to have a nuclear shelter, why would you want to connect them, sort of by road? So there must be another alternative reason for the road. And I think it's a great way to disperse and transport, troops without anybody's knowledge.
That makes sense to me. I know. I've seen photos, and I'm not somebody who takes every photograph to be. For me, I've got to trust who I'm getting it from, then know that they didn't Photoshop or what have you. And I've seen pictures of what seems to be farms underneath the ground, where they've literally got farms, artificial sunlight down there that they're growing stuff with. I've seen the roads, almost like stores built down there. It's insane what they have.
Well, exactly. I mean, that I believe, when you go back to 9/11, just before 9/11, I believe that the military was hauled up in front of Congress and asked, how come they're missing $41 trillion out of the budget? Where did that money go? And then 9/11 hit, and it all got swept under the rug. Well, I think I know where the $41 trillion went. I think it's building all those underground bunkers for the elite.
Yeah, and when we say bunkers, I mean, people are probably picturing these small little survival bunkers. No, we're talking about. I mean, they've got literally cities under the ground.
Yeah, well, they have those moles that they used, which are about 60 feet in diameter, that actually bore through the earth, and they bore through the earth quite quickly. And some of them, from my understanding, I could be wrong, but some of them were actually nuclear driven.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that. Now, I've always thought this is what would be a good explanation for, people report hearing these rumbling sounds. I mean, what are these sounds? They say it sounds like trumpets playing or something.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's probably what they were hearing, and these tremors that they'd get. Probably these bore machines underneath the ground.
Well, that could well be. And the fact that, on that program that Jesse did was they discovered they had acres and acres of these 3-tier coffins out in the open. And, Jesse's obviously, was asking, well, what are they for? And as soon as he had that on TV, they all disappeared. They got removed.
Yeah,
so,
that's
I
right.
mean, if you've got a good explanation for them, why would you move them so quickly? So I found that very suspicious, and I'm finding a lot of things extremely suspicious.
Yeah, well, see, I agree with you, and this is why I cover this topic, and I've covered this topic since the day I got into radio, because I remember back in 1983, in my science class, a science magazine, little paperback thing that they'd hand out once a week, and it was from NASA, and I remember opening that, and it talked about Planet X, discovering Planet X, and how they some satellite had gone out of orbit. I think it was a Russian satellite. They said kind of went off course a bit, and it caught this thing they said it just came into the solar system just enough where they were able to get pictures of it, and they made it sound like, hey, it could be Earth-like, might be trees and this. So I remember being excited about it, but I didn't know what it would turn into later. Later down the line, I start hearing about it, and it rings bells, and I say, hey, I heard about that Planet X. But now it's not, well, hey, there might be other people there. It's more, it's coming and it's going to destroy and destruct, and that it's done it before. And so, I've seen enough evidence to say it's worth not closing the door on. That's for sure.
Well, and I agree 100%. And one thing I did notice, and I did write that in the article and ask other people if they could notice too, is like I was always very interested in UFOs as a kid.
Yeah, me
and
too.
Aliens, and this is going to tell my age, but I used to watch that thing called Flash Gordon. I don't know how old you are, but
I remember it, but I'm not quite that old. But I've always been into the older stuff. I'm going to be 45 in August, so.
Oh no, you're just young. But I watched this, and I'd be glued to the TV, and the special effects when I saw it like not so long ago, and I saw some of the clips and some of the special effects were so funny, but sparklers for the engine, and but I always used to watch the moon, look at the moon, and I don't know about you, but when you look at the moon, it always seems to have a sort of a man's face in it.
Yeah.
And so I've studied the moon a little bit, and there is a very large crater on the moon called Tycho. I'm not sure whether you're familiar with that or not, but Tycho is one of the larger craters, which is visible with a pair of binoculars. And what surprised me was that I was looking at the moon one day, and I thought, it doesn't look right. So I got the binoculars out, and Tycho normally sits at the 5 o'clock position. That's how I remember the moon, the man in the face. It's just a little cockeyed, but it's there. And it had moved 90 degrees. And to the 8 o'clock position, I'm thinking, how can that be? Because there's no engine on the moon for it to make it move. It's not rotating, it's stationary, it's supposed to be there, solid, that's it, not move. But I've watched it move both ways, 90 degrees at times. You get a full moon and watch that, I think you might be surprised that you might be able to see that. And one of the things that really convinced me there was something going on out there. So obviously I started to dig deeper and deeper and find out more information. And again, it's from the people I think that are credible. And I've actually contacted one person. I'm not going to mention names because I don't want to, single people out. But I contacted one person who is quite well known, and I asked him a question and stuff like that. And the reply I got was not really what I expected. Let's put it that way. I'm more or less wasting his time. So, that disappointed me too, because people want to know things, and if we can't get that message out in an honest fashion and give them the information, because I have conversations with people and I try and blurt out in 15, 20 minutes, what I've learned.
Right.
But I've learned this: you cannot convince people in 20 minutes what took me 2 years to be convinced of. All you can do is make them aware, and then they're going to have to find out for themselves.
That's right. My kids will sometimes, they're older, they're teenagers, but they'll sometimes come to me and ask me, Dad, what do you really think about this? And I mean, do you think it's BS or is it? And, I tell them, I say, well, do I think that you need to worry about it? No. Because, do I think that it's out there? I think that there's something's real to this whole thing, because there's been enough that's come up with it, through the years with this whole. So I tell them that, yeah, I think there's something out there somewhere, but nobody has been able to show me exactly where it is and exactly how long till it gets here. And until they do that, I'm not going to sweat it. So I try not to scare them with things like this and just tell them, hey, more or less find it interesting, research it yourself. I mean, see what you find and come to your own determinations on it. But